Hello and welcome to episode 3 of What Makes This Song Special. Thanks to everybody so far who has liked, shared and viewed episodes 1 and 2, along with the second parts where I cover the song in question. So this week, as always, I will talk a little bit about my story behind the song, so why it's a special song to me, what makes the song special to me. You can leave in the comments why the song is special to you if it is. And I'll talk a wee bit about the song, the singer, the band. Not an 80s rock band this time. I decided to veer away from that after the first couple of episodes. Although Queen aren't really an 80s rock band, but we're around in the 80s. So this week's song is actually by Simply Red, and the song is Stars. So at the time, so we're going back to 1992, I'd just celebrated my 11th birthday, and this isn't the type of song really that I would have listened to. I was more into the 80s rock genre then, so the Guns N' Roses, Bon Jovi, Queen, all that. In fact, I wasn't even into Queen at that point. More Guns N' Roses, Bon Jovi, Poison, which I covered last week. That was more my thing, big guitar solos, and Simply Red weren't really a band I knew anything about. So where was I the first time I heard the song? So if I close my eyes, I'm instantly transported back to 1992, November. I was sitting in a blue Volkswagen Jetta that would become a sort of home to us at many points in my childhood, which I'll go further into in other episodes. And so we were living in Clarkston, in the south side of Glasgow at the time. And when I heard this song, it was about 5:30 in the morning, and we were driving to Italy. We were leaving home, or what we called home at the time. We had many homes, and Mum and Dad had to give up their business. It was a real bad recession in the UK in the early 90s, and I won't go into politics, but various reasons for the recession, but it hit Mum and Dad hard, and they lost their business, and we had to leave our house. And the only house that we had at the time was the empty house that I spoke about in last week's episode, which was my grandparents' old house in Italy. And so we'd packed our whole lives up into the back of the Volkswagen Jetta, put some stuff into storage at various family members' houses, and we were making the trip. So the day before had been pretty emotional. We'd been saying bye to friends and leaving school and not knowing if we were coming back, or what the future held, I suppose, for any of us. A much tougher, as a parent now, I kind of look back and think it was a really tough time for my parents. Probably they were worried that it was a tough time for us, but other than leaving school and missing some friends, we probably had an amazing adventure, me and my brothers, more than we could ever have sort of dreamed of. But yeah, a very tough time for them. And so the song, we'll go back to the song, I digress. We were in the back. I have a vivid memory of me and my brothers in the back seats of the car. My dad was in the driver's seat. He was about to drive about 600 miles because we were planning to stop in Germany as the halfway point. It was always the halfway point when we drove to Italy on holiday, or on the many times that we drove there to stay for a while. And Germany was always a good halfway point. And there's a whole other story about friends in Germany that we've made over the years. But yeah, 600 mile journey non-stop, maybe a petrol stop, and a half an hour sleep on the ferry on the way over the channel from Britain to France, which you had to do back then before the tunnel was built. So so I was in the back of the car. My mum had stopped. We'd stopped at a wee street called Ceres Road, which actually ended up being my high school many years later. But we stopped at the top of Ceres Road outside a park called Tinkers Park, if any other Southsiders remember Tinkers Park. And there was a wee newsagents there that was open, and my mum jumped into the newsagents and she came out with a Beano comic, a Buster, a Beezer, and some Golden Wonder crisps. And while we waited for her to go in and get the snacks and provisions, my dad had the radio on the front, and this song played. And actually, at the time, I probably didn't give it too much notice. I just remember the song coming on and thinking, that's quite a nice song. Never really knew who it was or anything like that. It was probably a lot later that I heard the song again and remembered it and recognised it from that moment where we were about to embark on this huge journey, leaving behind friends and school and all these things. And so that's what it always reminds me of. It always reminds me of that moment. That journey it turned out to be one of the most amazing experiences of my life. We moved, we first of all stopped in Germany for a few nights. I always remember it was my youngest brother Luciano's 5th birthday. So he celebrated his birthday in Germany in a little bed and breakfast in a wee town called Kisselbach, which was in the Rhine Valley. And I remember he got the Looney Tunes Game Boy game for his Game Boy. That was his birthday present, certainly if it wasn't his birthday present, we just got it. Maybe it was somebody else's. I can't remember. But we played the Looney Tunes Game Boy game. Anybody that doesn't know what a Game Boy is, do a wee Google search. It makes me feel very old when people don't know what Game Boys and Game Gears are and Mega Drives and things like that. So yeah, that was the stop in Germany, and I think we stopped there for a couple of nights, sort of refueled, had some great food, went for some nice walks in the woods, and had a good sleep, and then went for another 600-mile drive from Germany to the little town of Villa Latina, where my dad's from, which is in between Rome and Naples in the mountains. And we unpacked there and stayed there for, that was probably the longest stint. We lived in a few times. I think that was the longest stint. I think that was the best part of a year, if not at least about 8 or 9 months. And we lived there, and we'd been given some, because we didn't know if we were staying, our head teacher in Scotland had given us these English and maths books to homeschool while we were there. So we would get up in the morning, do an hour or two of homework, some English and maths, and then we would head out for the rest of the day. We would go and play football, we'd make friends, we would try and find scorpions and collect them in jars and do all these crazy things that you can do when you live in the middle of nowhere. And we would go and collect wood for the fire. We would go for walks every afternoon with Mum and Dad. We'd go up the mountains, and my dad would tell us stories about wolves and bears and stuff like that, and snakes, and we would try and spot these crazy animals that we'd only heard about in books. And amazing adventures. And I always think back to that song. I don't know what was going through my head when I heard the song, but it's such a fantastic track. I'll talk a wee bit about the song. So I did a wee bit of research. So I don't really know much about Simply Red, but they were a 6-piece band formed in 1985. Kind of soul pop, I think the genre would be called. Not really, as I said, not really my thing then, but in hindsight, actually a really great band with some amazing songs, some really great hits, and Mick Hucknall, the singer, is a fantastic vocalist. And of course, when I became a vocalist many years after hearing the song for the first time, Mick Hucknall became a reference point for all singers of that era. So I've definitely studied his voice over the years and looked at his vocal style, and has got an amazing voice, very, very soulful, very kind of effortless, especially when he's hitting high notes. He's able to get into his upper chest register with ease, and he's got really good diaphragmatic breathing technique, really kind of almost musical theatre-esque diaphragm technique. You can see when he's taking breaths and things like that. He's got loads of power as well. Lots and lots of anchoring around the diaphragm for you singing geeks. I think he once claimed that he learned how to sing from reading an old actor's book about projection, and that kind of, I think that really you can hear that in his voice when you hear him sing. So uses a lot of mixed voice, again, for the vocal geeks. He uses a lot of mix. He'll go up really high in his chest voice and then come down into notes that are lower, but then move into mix or even head voice sometimes on lower notes, which is a really soulful thing to do. Technically, it sounds amazing. Really impressive technique. He does a lot of things like that. Things in songs like Holding Back the Years, using, holding back the years, and he'll finish on years, even though it's a lower note than back the. He'll go into head voice, things like that, and then he'll go up to wasted all my tears, so he can get up there without getting into head voice, but he'll use head voice and mixed voice on lower notes, which is just amazing for tone. It's just such a listenable voice. It's really cool. So yeah, that's a little bit about the singer and about the band. But yeah, every time I hear that song, I'm sort of instantly transported back to the back seats of the old Volkswagen Jetta, about to embark on a journey that I suppose shapes who I became. Definitely humbling. Something I'd like to pass on to my kids. I think nowadays, or maybe that's unfair, maybe not everywhere, but I certainly think nowadays kids have got it maybe a wee bit easier than we did, or my parents' generation certainly did. They get everything they want, and my kids are spoilt rotten a little bit, and it's I think back to some of those times where I know my mum and dad were struggling financially, and we were living, essentially we were homeless. We were moving around to try and find a new life, and I think it's an important life lesson for anybody. So I think I learned a lot on that journey about giving. We were given so much. There were so many people in the village, people who were maybe distant relatives or neighbours, or just people that we got to know. And in a small village like that, people get to know your circumstances, and the amount of presents that we were given for Christmas when we stayed there from neighbours. We were given so many different cakes, and we were given things like Torone, which is like a, I don't know what you'd call it in Britain. You would call it maybe nougat, but it's hard and it's got like pieces of hazelnut through it. We're given panettone. That's become something that everybody in the world knows now. Back then, nobody would have known unless you were in Italy. But panettone, pandoro. Mum and Dad were given bottles and bottles of homemade wine and olive oil, and we were given more eggs than we could ever even imagine to eat from the chickens. We were given fruit and vegetables, and often neighbours, and they would give me and my brothers money to go and get an ice cream and things like that. So learned a lot about giving, appreciating tiny things in life, family, adventure, all of those things. And that Christmas was amazing. Actually, it was one of the best Christmases I ever experienced. It was Mum and Dad still made it really special. Santa still brought me lots of amazing presents, and I remember we went up the mountains one day, and we chopped down a tree like you see in the movies. We chopped down this fir tree, and we brought it back to the house, and we got tin foil, and we didn't have any decorations, anything like that, so we made decorations. We got tin foil, and we made decorations out of tin foil and hung them on the tree, and just an amazing adventure. And when I hear that song, Simply Red Stars, every time I hear it, I'm back in the car, about to go on this big adventure. My whole life about to change massively, and very special song to me. So remember to leave in the comments what makes the song special to you, if it does. And for anybody who's interested in vocal coaching, which is my day job, get in touch if you want to learn more about vocal techniques, if you want to learn more about how to use your voice, how to not abuse your voice, how to build bigger range, all these things. Get in touch either in the comments or by email, and click here somewhere for part 2, where I'll do a wee cover version of the song. Thanks so much.